us 10 minutes before we actually go live.
Hello, welcome to Writing Quest. I'm Ansley Ashe. I'm one of your quest guides today. Coral has had a flat tire and will probably not be with us yet today, but it is our thank goodness it's over party. We have with us special guests Amy Gash and Elise Howard. We'll be interviewing them in just a second. I did want to tell you that we do have one further event in December. We're going to do our normal write-in at an event on Sunday, December 21st at 11 a.m., which is our normal time. We are live on YouTube, but feel free to watch the VOD so you can pause if you need more time for some of our prompts, or if you just want to make sure that you have a question, put them in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and do all of our fun algorithm stuffs. All right, with us today, we have Amy Gash and Elise Howard. Amy has been a book editor at major New York City publishing houses for 30 years, most recently as executive editor at Algonquin Books, Hachette Book Group, where she acquired and edited narrative nonfiction and fiction for adults. Today, she works independently, helping writers with developmental editing, line editing, and proposal writing. Her first collection of quotation from children's book was What the Dormouse Said, Lessons for Grown-Ups from Children's Books. And her co-author, Elise Howard, is a literary agent, anthologist, and writer who has previously worked as a publisher and editor, mainly of children's books. Her newest book, Plant This, Not That, over 200 native plant swaps for a more sustainable, pollinator-friendly garden, will be published by Workman in March of 2026. When she is not reading, writing, editing, selling, or thinking about books, Elise is usually gardening with native plants or trying to persuade others to do so. She lives and works in gardens in Manhattan and Western Massachusetts. Welcome to Writing Quest, Elise and Amy. And they're here today about the book that they wrote. It was released about a year ago. It's called Believe in the World, Wisdom for Grown-Ups from Children's Books. And I am just like such a fan of this book. Welcome to Writing Quest. So happy that you're here.
Thank you.
So I guess I'm gonna so I have a question for you, and I guess I'll start with Elise first, and then we'll move over to Amy. You guys wrote this, co-authored this together. What drew you together to be co-authors on this project?
I love this question because Amy is in Algonquin for some time when I joined in 2011, and she was quickly my favorite person in the whole organization. And we had a great time being colleagues for many years, and then the pandemic happened. And then I decided to retire from that part of my publishing career. Actually, it was another retirement completely. And then I missed it so badly that I came back to the age about a year later. But Amy approached me because Algonquin wanted her to do a new collection of quotations from children's literature. It had been a while since the collection was published. And she was hoping that I could join and help diversify the selection and update it because I kind of really wanted to give it. And I said yes immediately because I liked the idea of diversifying the collection, but also because it gave me an excuse to hang out with Amy for hours at a time and talk about books and debate the collection and also watch her very thoroughly. She had a lot of conversation and yes, that's my version.
Okay.
I hear very well. I crash or come in again. I hear background noise, but I don't hear. I don't have Lisa's voice is very low.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to hear Elise.
Now I hear a boom boom.
Okay, you know what? There's okay, I'm gonna move to another room.
So I will ask Amy some questions while we work out our technical difficulties. We're live, people. This is what happens when we're live. Okay. Amy, wisdom for grown-ups from children's books. That's a fun idea. I know this is an update from your book, What the Dormouse Said. Where did you come up with the idea to tell adults? You can find inspiration in the books you're reading to your kids, maybe, or your grandkids, or maybe a niece or nephew in your life.
Yeah, what happened was I've been an editor it feels like forever. And when I had my son, I had taken a little time off and I was reading constantly to him. And a lot of the books I was reading were just, I couldn't handle it. He would say, read more, again. And I was like, oh no, not one more time. But some of the books I found beautiful, and I found they were poetry to me. And I loved reading them again because each time I got something new. I realized that a lot of these books were really actually affecting me. And I realized that maybe there were lessons in these books that I could still use. I mean, not that books have to have lessons, but a lot of children's books do, it turns out. So I just said, hey, I'll just start collecting them. And I put them on the refrigerator and I stuck them in different books. And I realized that I had a collection. And that's how it started.
Amazing. Okay. So, like I said, I am a huge fan of this book. So I have marked some of my favorite things in here. So I would like to talk a little bit about this. So, first of all, if you don't own this book, or you need to own this book, just everybody in my audience, if you don't own the book, go buy the book. It is amazing when you're feeling down or whatever, or even if you're feeling good. There are just so many little snippets in here that have so much in there, right? So one is how to be good in the world, which I just love that idea that put goodness into the world. And that those are kindness, acceptance, courage, confidence, and forgiveness. And kindness is this concept that I believe in. I personally, just to show a character flaw here, I hate nice. I feel like nice is a lie, but I believe firmly in kindness, right? I feel like nice wants you to reciprocate. Kindness does it just because it's the right thing to do, or just to put something that's good into the world. So I believe very firmly in kindness, and I really dislike niceness because I feel like niceness is a lie, and I feel like that just pollutes the kindness that's out there. So anyway, not all nice things are. Some people are just genuinely nice. So don't. But generally speaking, this is my philosophy on life. I write mystery.
Nice, if it's authentic.
If it's authentic, it's kindness. If it's not authentic, then I label it as nice. Anyway, and this is why I'm a mystery writer, maybe not a children's book writer. But the very first quotation in here really spoke to me. It says, "To be careful with people and with words was a rare and beautiful thing." And I think, how many times do we say something that is unkind, not even thinking about how that will land in someone else's life? And I think that this is maybe just the first one just really jumped off the page at me, because I did struggle with that growing up, just having a very honest reaction to something, sometimes, and it came off harshly, and I didn't always mean it as harshly as it sounded. So to me, it was a very much a discipline that I had to learn. So can you talk a little about why goodness was a thing? I know a lot of children's books talk about goodness, but why was goodness a thing you felt, either one of you, that you felt needed to be in the book?
I can't hear Elise at all now. So, I don't know if other people can, but
I can't hear Elise at all. Poor Elise. Oh my
interesting.
goodness.
I think we were guided by the books that we read. So we noticed themes in the books, and then we were like, well, these are what. But I actually agree with you. I think being good and kind is so important. And I think, sometimes children are not kind to each other. And it is up to adults model that behavior, which we don't always do. And so it's good to be reminded as an adult that children are looking at us and they're seeing what we do. And that's how they learn, you know, what's the right thing to do, and to not hurt people and to care about people. Because
yes, I do think, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and kindness, I think, is a skill, right? It's a skill set, right? I think that empathy is a skill set. Kindness is a skill set. It's a thing that that we have to teach our kids, right? And you can preach it all you want to, but like you said, you need to model it.
Yeah.
Just a second.
It's funny
that
first quote was very, I love that first quote too. And that author, we had so many lines of his that we had to choose from, that like we otherwise, like so much of the book would be him. I really recommend that book, Aristotle and Dante Discovered the Secrets of the Universe. It's a beautiful book for kids, for adults.
For kids. For adults too. Well, I was attracted to that particular book because my mother-in-law is from Greece, and Aristotle is one of her favorite people. So so this was something she wanted. So these were books that she had because she wanted my kids to have their Greek heritage. Okay. So yes. All right. So the next one is on courage. And I love this from The Midwife's Apprentice, Karen Cushman. Just because you don't know everything don't mean you know nothing. And I love that the grammar is wrong, because kids care nothing about grammar. They just care about the truth.
It's true.
So,
can I ask you a question? So obviously, I'm really sorry. For some reason, the program just decided to go to my husband's phone for the microphone. So I had to leave and come back to make everything work. But Amy, did you get to talk about how we deliberately and carefully selected that quote to be the first quote in the book?
Well, I only said that author had so many wonderful quotes that it was hard to choose. But why did we choose that? I forgot, Elise.
Remember we did, Ansley, can you read the quote again?
Yeah, sure. I just really, really love this quote. To be careful with people and with words was a rare and beautiful thing.
Right. So we did spend a lot of time talking about the order of the sections, of each of the sections in the book. And we also spent a lot of time thinking about the first quote we would use and the last quote we would use. And as I recall our thought process, it was that this is a book about people, and it is a book about language, and it is a book about words. And that, I think you got to some of this earlier, that goodness is such an essential, important thing in how we live. So I just wanted to point out that quote was number one because we loved it the way you did. We responded to it in a similar way, and because it was about words and people.
Yeah. So then the next quote in here is on having confidence, which is but I'm happy to read it again. Like, you can take the girl out of narrating audiobooks, but you can't take the audiobook narrator out of the girl, right? Just because you don't know everything don't mean you know nothing. And I love that the grammar is wrong, right? Because kids don't care about grammar. They care about like an essential truth. So can you talk a little bit about including that quote in the book?
Well, I want to say kids don't care about grammar, but I think kids get a kick out of it when it's not right. And they kind of know it. Like they think that there's something, that they're in on a secret there. Which,
yeah. So a little naughty maybe, Yeah.
It's like, they said it wrong. Yeah.
I think too, there were just some writers. So we approached collecting these quotes in a number of ways. And, some quotes we stumbled across, some we went looking for in order to balance out the collection. And sometimes there were a number of writers who are beloved to one or both of us, and we wanted to make sure to include their voices in the book. And I kind of recall that being one of those cases. And then for the reasons you said, it felt like a perfect addition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay. So then keep going. No, keep going.
No, I'm done.
Okay. So then we moved on to something that is near and dear to our heart. We have, we'll come back to this question here at the very end. It's part of our wrap-ups. But we have a huge, food is a huge topic of debate on Writing Quest, because I ask a specific question of all of our guests before they leave in our wrap-up. But this quote really stood out to me. "What I am is tired of jam. I want spaghetti and meatballs," said Frances. So, and you put this in food. Okay, so food in children's book, I think, is just, I always found it to be funny, from like Green Eggs and Ham, and I wish, and Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, that's a movie, but still, I mean, like kids and food and kids books.
It was a book before it was a movie.
It was a book before it was a movie, but my kids didn't read the book. They watched the movie. They were like done. Once they knew it was a movie, they were done with the book. But yeah, no. But like, I feel like it's like really like food is really exaggerated in children's books in some ways. And I thought, well, that's an interesting thing, because we're teaching kids about food, to include in a book about wisdom, for adults. So can you talk about including food quotes, or are you just foodies? Like,
well, I think yes, Elise is. I don't know if I am, but I think that part of our mission was to have an entertaining book as well as a book that had lessons. And food is so fun. So, I mean, it's not, I think childhood is fun and should be. And there should be plenty of laughter. So a lot of the food quotes, I think, are humorous. And I think that's part of why kids like it, because food, it's silly. A carrot?
And that quote is actually part of a 2-quote combo in the book. So the quote right above it, sorry, it's been a little while since I looked at this, and in my moving back and forth, I left my book behind. But there should be another Frances quote right above that one, I think.
Yeah, right above that. Well, so I'll read them all together. "Well," said Frances, "there are many different things to eat, and they taste many different ways. But when I have bread and jam, I always know what I am getting, and I am always pleased. What I am is tired of jam. I want spaghetti and meatballs," said Frances. So, like, right. I am always pleased, but like, yeah, like it really does. Sometimes if you have the same thing day after day, it really does grate on you.
Well, and that's what happens in that book. I mean, for me, that's a book that I have almost internalized. So this is the story of Frances, who won't eat anything her parents give her, and they finally lose their minds trying to get her to introduce some variety into her diet. And they say, okay, you can eat bread and jam every single day. And then finally the book ends with the counterpoint to that, which is, I can't eat another piece of bread and jam. Just give me something else to eat. So I think for a lot of adult readers of our collection, Bread and Jam for Frances is kind of a classic read. So they're going to get the full context. But even if you don't, those 2 quotes side by side, I think cause us all to remember a moment in our childhood, or maybe not in our childhood, when we dealt with a similar situation, when your favorite food becomes something you can't even look at anymore.
Or if you're raising kids, like my youngest is getting ready to graduate high school, right? But like I'm back there like with my kids, and they're all picky eaters, right? And so like inevitably one of them has just had like enough of whatever it is that I made for dinner, and like I'm there in that moment as well. So like I found it just to be both humorous and very, very touching. Okay, and then this is in the last part of the book. "Becoming who you're meant to be. And I love that this is advice for adults, right? Because I think like adults constantly tell kids, this is how you become who you are, right? And we don't ever think like, hey, we're still growing individuals. We need every day as a process of becoming for us as well. And these are things. So I love that you included this in the book. I found all of the quotes inspirational. But this one kind of maybe really I thought was touched me the most. Own your own power. Own your connection to Mother Earth. Howl at the moon, bare your teeth, and be a bad word. Well, we don't curse on this program. We're a PG program. Darn wolf. Go get the book if you want to read it. It's great. We don't curse on this program. It's kind of Tim would be aghast. He's the leader of our movement. He would be aghast. But I do love that, one, you included one with a curse word in it. So like, yay, because I have potty mouth myself. And two, it's your connection to Mother Earth. Own your own power and your connection to Mother Earth. And I think those are things as a parent that were very difficult to teach to my children, being very tech oriented, like get out, touch grass, like smell the fresh air, walk in a park. I feel like it was harder for my kids than it was in my generation, being an Xer myself. So what spoke to you about these quotes? Why do we include some of these in the book?
Well, I think what you said is so true. We're always in the process of becoming who we're meant to be. And who we think we're going to be is not always who we end up being. And I think that, like, if you sort of can accept that there's like an inner you that's telling you, you have power, you can do it. If you want to be a writer, you can be a writer. That's important to recognize. And it is powerful when you recognize it. When you say, I can do anything I want.
I think also culturally, Americans tend to get slotted in. So, we're always asking each other, what are you, or what do you do? And so I thought, well, first of all, I want to say a lot of these quotes we stumbled across first. They spoke to us, they resonated with us. One of us wrote them down, or both of us said, oh, this is great. And then we sort of shaped them into the collections within the collection. And they just, so they kind of organically started to fall into categories. But I think reinvention and the idea that, when you're looking at children's books and thinking about adults, you do think, oh, what are the themes that maybe we were open to as kids that we've left behind as grownups? And this section is kind of one of those.
Yeah. So it is. The whole entire book is worth reading. Anytime you need a little pick-me-up, if you're a reader, and why are you a writer if you're not a reader? Don't understand you. I believe in you, but I don't understand you. I don't need to understand you. I just need to believe in you. But so this one is Believe in the World, Wisdom for Grown-Ups from Children's Books. I'm going to go on, and I'm going to have a short conversation with Elise about her forthcoming book, because about native plants and pollinators. And Elise, so full disclosure, so everybody on Writing Quest knows my father passed away about a year ago, and he was a beekeeper. So this beekeeper charm that I am wearing is in memory of my dad, which I did know, like, if this is one of the reasons why I wore it today, and one of the reasons I'm delighted to have you on there. So Elise, can you tell Writing Quest, first of all, I'm going to make this into a writing question here in a minute. But first of all, can you tell everybody, why are pollinators important, and why native plants for the native pollinators that are out there?
So there are a couple basic things. I mean, I could give you the long version. I will try to keep this short.
The short, high-level version. Yeah.
The highest level version is that our entire food web and our entire ecosystem depends on pollinators. That birds and small mammals eat pollinators, and that is really important. We all did the food web, so we know why that's important, because that just feeds our whole chain. But it also sustains our ecosystem and the interaction of plants and animals and decaying plant and animal material. And our native plants and our native pollinators, our local plants and our local pollinators co-evolved. So locally native plants support the highest number of pollinators. And that's why it's really essential to plant native plants as much as possible. And that goes hand in glove with the unfortunate fact that there is no longer enough public land in the United States to sustain our ecosystem and to sustain the food web and the pollinator system. So it's essential that individual gardeners, homeowners, anybody with a little patch of land to garden on, joins the movement and starts adding native plants to whatever garden they have.
And I would just like to put a plug for your local native plants. Most of them are really pretty too. So they're also easier to.
Yeah.
So when Elise's book comes out, at least on my Substack, this will be covered on Ansley Ashe Mysteries. So it will be covered because my dad was a beekeeper, but when he got into beekeeping in his retirement, that's when, he really started thinking about like what those local native plants were. And because bees can be the canary in the coal mine, right? But like even as a beekeeper, like the native pollinators are better, and like those ecosystems need to go together. And so he really did love the bees, and it kept him very active for quite a while. But my dad was a very curious guy. Okay, so I'm going to be respectful of your time. We have a few wrapping up questions that we ask everybody. So, Amy and Elise, so Amy says she doesn't write, which I think, cool. We love you. But Elise, you've been a writer and a literary agent. How old were you when you first started writing?
Second grade, first grade.
Yeah. This is the answer. This is the answer we get all the time. Yeah, this is just the answer.
Right. I remember submitting. I'm not going to say I was like the kind of 11-year-old kid who completes novels. I was just an ordinary kid who loved stories and writing. And I remember submitting to magazines, submitting to school newspaper, winning a local, I think it was Halloween story contest in the second grade, which is how I know it was at least by then. But yeah. And I went to journalism school and then got away from it with my publishing career, but always had this kind of yen to go back to it.
So I would like to tell you that even if you didn't take up writing until you were getting ready to turn 50, so we'll use that word, 50, it's not too late. You can totally do it. We believe in you. We believe in everybody here at Writing Quest. Amy, how old were you? I'm going to ask you a different question because you keep telling me you're not a writer. How old were you when you knew that you wanted to be like in the publishing industry, like as a writer or as an editor, or when did you first feel that calling to work and stuff?
Well, I didn't realize it at the time, but my mother I knew my mother was a writer, but I didn't realize that she was preparing me to be an editor because she would always read me her poems, read me her short stories. And I would just naturally like comment on them. And I knew that even in school, I knew that I knew how to critique something. And being an editor is all about critiquing. And so I loved, like writing reviews, or I loved talking about books. So I graduated from college. I did not think that I didn't even know publishing like really existed in this way. I didn't know what the jobs were in publishing. I had no idea. But I just, I had done an internship at what was called the McNeil-Lehrer Report then, which was the which is now, I think, the PBS NewsHour. And I knew I liked that a lot. But then I got a job in journalism, and I didn't like keeping up with the news that way, like having to always, I just was a slower person. And then I quit that job because I quit every job actually I've ever had after 2 years. I just did. And I got another job, and it was in the publicity department of a publishing house. I just went and applied, and I got it. I don't know why I did it. And immediately the company was sold to another company, and they told me that I couldn't go with them, and I had no job. And so I'd been there 6 weeks, but I did love it because I got to write these press releases. And then another editor there needed an assistant, and that was 40 years ago. And I just immediately knew that editorial was where I wanted to be.
That's so amazing. Okay, so now for the controversial question, and then we have a treat for our viewers. So we'll get to that in just a second. So this is the controversial food question. It divides everybody. When you're working, what kind of snack do you like to eat if you are a snacker?
I eat salads constantly. I like to bring a big salad in front of my computer and work away.
Edward, you have been showed up. Edward was like carrots and blueberries. He's been showed up today. There's a salad. So like Edward was Sunday. So like I was like, oh my gosh, you're my healthiest snacker. And then we get one who's healthy. Elise, do you snack?
So I have to confess, I mean, it's a good thing I never took up smoking because when I was a little kid writer, I was a pencil chewer, and now I have a pretty terrible gum chewing habit that I mean, it really, there's no question with me thinking and writing and being at the keyboard. So it's always sugarless, but that's what I do, because if I didn't do that, I would probably eat something chocolate with something crunchy in it all day long.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is the big divide. Is like I am a salty person, so like I eat popcorn when I'm writing. I've been like working really hard to like get off that habit, but like, yeah, so we're divided between salty snacks, and I don't know what drives the salty, and sweet. And everybody who does the sweet snacks, they're like, yeah, brain needs a boost. Like we're in the creative mode, and it's like just sucking up energy, and like, I need that chocolate. I need that sugar. I need that other stuff. So this is very controversial on here. It's a very hot topic. We get comments on that all the time. Okay. I did ask each of you, because of your, amazing credentials. We just wrapped up what we call Novel Quest, which is in November, which is kind of the traditional National Novel Writing Month challenge. Our writers chose an arbitrary, you could do the classic 50,000 words, which Coral and I are going to talk about zipping up your novel and putting it to sleep, because it does need to rest after you get done with that first draft. You need to forget what you wrote a little bit so that you can go back with it with a fresh eye and maybe see what's wrong. But we did ask each of you to bring a few tips with us. So, Elise, what are your tips for us? She says as she pulls out her note cards to take notes.
So we kind of riffed off each other, and I took the agent role in creating tips for today. So I do want to talk a little bit about things to bear in mind when you think you're ready to submit your work. One thing is that while you need to remain open to revision, you need to submit your absolute best, most polished work. You don't want to be sending something out in the universe thinking, well, I'm not sure if this is done, so let me see what some agents and editors think of it. You need to feel confident that you are submitting your best and most polished work. A corollary to that is when you start submitting, whether it's to editors or agents, and these days it's mostly agents because of the gatekeeping process, follow guidelines scrupulously and different agents do have different guidelines. You may have to spend some time doing technical modification of your work to fit various people's guidelines, but you have to do it. And then there are two tiny little things that I see people do, that are slightly transgressive all the time. So I want to mention both of them. First is, for the love of everything, number your pages and put a clear, simple header on your work, which is basically title, author name, and then the page number. People still do like to print out work, and there is nothing more frustrating than going to your printer and finding 50 chaotic pages because your printer has misbehaved and they are unnumbered and unlabeled and you don't know what they are. The other thing is, like a lot of agents, I have a separate submissions inbox. And I think people think that they have outsmarted the system by figuring out my regular agency email and submitting to that. Those are an automatic delete for me, only because there are so many submissions coming in all the time that I'm asking you to do me the courtesy of following my submissions guideline and using my submissions inbox, and thinking that you're outsmarting me or outsmarting the system just gets you an automatic delete. So that's...
I hear this all over. By the way, guys, you can find all of these on Twitter, like any literary agent on Twitter. This is like every single week they're going to say these things over and over and over again. If you don't already know them, it's really true. Agents want to fall in love with your work. They are open to falling in love with your work. It is not like dating apparently out in the real world these days where they're swiping. Like, they're not swiping. They're wanting to be in a relationship with your book. Do the things that it's going to take to get them to fall in love with you. They're ready, willing, and eager, and you, like anybody, you want to put your best foot forward. All right. Those are great tips. I have heard them over and over again, but I don't think they can be said loudly enough or clearly enough or successfully enough or frequently enough. All of those things are really, really important. So, yes. All right, Amy, what about for our writers?
Well, but this is another, if you're, first of all, I agree 100,000% with Elise when she says send your best work. Don't assume that you finished the book and now it's ready for an agent. If you don't have a writer's group, if you don't have people you trust, not just like your friend or your sister who's not going to really be honest, get people who will give you honest feedback and then revise, because a lot of times people send stuff too early and then they say, oh my gosh, nobody wants my book, but it wasn't ready to send. The other thing is, in terms of doing the research about who you should send the book to, it's important to make sure that you're sending to an agent who does the kind of books that you're writing. I mean, don't send... There's lots of places online where you can find out, what agents are looking for. You can go to Query Tracker, you can go to Publishers Marketplace, you can go to literary agent websites and look at the agents in that group, and make sure you're not sending your romance to someone who only does literary novels, or you're not sending your sci-fi book to somebody who just only does historical fiction. I think that's really important. I don't know if people realize that people really do specialize. Then I would say, figure out what your book is about. You write this book, you're the first person pitching it, and your pitch makes a difference. Even if an agent is interested, they want to know what your pitch is, and they're going to pitch it to an editor that way sometimes. So I just think a lot of people don't really know what their book is about. So sit down and think about it. I do a lot of nonfiction, but for fiction too, I mean, it can't just be, oh, this is a book about a girl who meets a boy and they get married. It has to have a deeper meaning or have some relevance to the marketplace too. Like, why would somebody be interested
And I
in
think
this book?
when Amy and I were talking about this earlier, we realized that in terms of being able to talk about your book, it's probably important to be able to give the log line, the 15 words or less version, the elevator pitch, which is a paragraph or two, and then probably the synopsis, which is a couple of pages, 3 pages. But you've got to be able to speak to your work at whatever length your reader is requiring of you.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to say is that it is never too early to start building an audience. I mean, so many authors, they get a book deal, they've got their book, and then they say, okay, now I'm going to get like 100 million Instagram followers. Well, it really doesn't work that way. So, I think, I mean, if you don't want to do social media, okay. But if you do, it's nice to start now before everything happens, because it takes a long time.
Well, and also, like, you need to figure out what you're going to say about your book. That's what I found. It's like my cousin got a book deal and she didn't know how to talk about her book. And, like it's sold pretty decently. She writes, well, great fiction, I guess. I don't know. But, she tells me she doesn't want to think about her marketing stuff. And as longtime viewers of this program know, I am a co-founder and co-organizer of a local literary festival. And it is the number one thing that I think I see authors struggle with is like trying to connect with that audience and trying to get that synopsis in there shortly. And I'm like, I'm willing to fall in love with your book, but why am I choosing you over this other author who equally wants me to fall in love with their book? So like, yeah, you need an audience is like in one of it's not like the most important criteria, but it is a criteria that we look at because we want people to come to our literary festival. We want people to discover really good writers. So like, we want you to have a following as well. So like, I agree with that. It's never too early, put yourself to work, put yourself out there. You can share snippets. Hopefully you've got some short stories. You've got some stuff to put out there. Like, I would encourage you to put it out there. Okay. Anything else?
Or even if you don't have something to put out there, you could say, I loved this book that I read. Or, you can say others. You don't have to be always selling your book. You could just be connecting with other people who feel similarly about writing.
Ansley, there is one more thing that came to mind. I know in a difficult marketplace, sometimes we find ourselves chasing one category and all other categories fall away. And sometimes as a writer, it's tempting to think, oh, well, everybody's writing romantasy. I guess I've got to write a romantasy. Well, whether it's romantasy or speculative fiction or literary fiction or romance or any other kind of book that you might write, you talked earlier about needing to be a reader to be a writer. And I would add that you need to read the kinds of books that you hope to write and publish. You can't just dive into a category and think that you're going to, do better than everybody else or improve on the form or that you don't need to research it or study it. You do.
Writing epic fantasy up until 2015 and my dog died. And so the series that I've been working on this last year, my dog, it was in memoriam of my dog, right? It was part of my grieving process for my dog. I made a character. And epic fantasy did not fit my dog. She was a poodle. But I started reading Sherlock Holmes when I was 7. And I was listening to this book on the Great Courses. And they were going through the entire history of mystery fiction. And I was like, read it, seen the adaptation, read it. I was like, oh, dang, I'm a mystery writer. Like, why did I try to write in any other genre? I'm like I said, I don't have fidelity to any particular genre. Like I've read tons and tons of romance, I've read tons and tons of epic fantasy, but the most depth and breadth that I have read is definitely in mystery, and that's why I chose mystery as, you know. And I'm writing for me, right? Like there are things about mystery that spoke to me, so that's why I write mystery. So I feel like, and this goes back to our writers on Writing Quest have had the same advice for our writers. Is like the first audience of your book is you. Write the book you want to. Don't worry about what that genre is. And then take a look and see what elements are in the story, and then, you know, and then you choose. Then you may decide what your genre is. You know, if you don't really know off the top of your head, you don't have to know it all at once, but you do have to kind of know. And then chances are you kind of like fit kind of very naturally into some space, and then you're going to edit the book maybe if you're going to go commercial with it for that marketplace. So, yeah. Well, it has been a pleasure having you here. I'm deeply sad that Coral's flat tire has prevented her from being with us today. But I am so delighted to have you guys here. Thank you so much for joining us on Writing Quests. We found your insights very, very valuable. And the book has been up here. And look at Coral. Coral is deeply sad. This is literally the photo she sent to us. Of how upset she was to miss us. But Coral and I will be back December the 21st at the very, very latest. And I am sure she will surprise me with a number of prompts. We're going to go back and we're going to watch this back to us. So I would expect maybe some of this advice to show up later on when we talk about editing and pushing the books out there, maybe January and February and stuff. So thank you so much for being with us today. And for our audience, normally we would have a write-in, but as everybody knows, Coral is the one who does all the prompts, and she surprises me with the prompts. So I don't have prompts for you guys today because I don't actually write the prompts. Coral surprises me live on the air with them, and I'm sure she wrote a number of really great ones, but since she's not here, we don't have them. So we will see you Sunday, December the 21st, and see you next time. Bye.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. And before I go, I have to thank my producer, David McInnes. He's amazing.